How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, if you want to be on the program, 877-973-7425. Out of the gate, we have some pretty big breaking news. A landmark judicial decision has just come down on the issue of transgenderism. This happens in Georgia, my home state where I am, in a case involving a county right next to mine, Houston County. Now, for those of you not from Georgia, we're talking about Houston County, but for reasons that I have never understood in Georgia, it is Houston County. And Sheriff Talton down there, a great sheriff, Anna Lang is the plaintiff. The case is Anna Lang versus Houston County. It is a landmark decision on transgenderism. It actually very significant decision. And here's why, and I want you to pay attention to this, because I went back and looked. When the original decision was released, it was heralded as a major decision, and it was covered nationally in the national press. It was covered by the New York Times. It was covered by CNN. It was covered by MSNBC. It was covered by all the major news outlets of the day. And it was just a single case in a single district, the Middle District of Georgia. And it has now gone on appeal to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And the district court has been reversed. The New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, The Washington Post, USA Today, and others all covered the district court decision. Will they cover the appeal? Because the appeal is a landmark decision that rules against transgenderism. It will possibly go to the United States Supreme Court, possibly. The case involves a man who has changed his name to Anna. He is a sheriff's deputy in Houston County, Georgia. I can read for you, by the way, it was an 8-5 decision. And I'll just read you the opening here. Anna Lang, a transgender woman and deputy at the Houston County Sheriff's Office, sought a male-to-female sex change surgery and requested that the county's employer-provided health insurance pay for it. But because the county's insurance policy excludes drugs for sex change surgery and services and supplies for a sex change and or the reverse of a sex change, the insurer denied Lang's request. Lang then sued the county for disparate impact because of sex under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And the district court held, among other things, that the plan's exclusion facially discriminated because of sex as a matter of law. We took this appeal en banc, that means the full court, to answer whether the insurance policy facially violates Title VII. We conclude that it does not. This is a major landmark decision. Now, I want you to note something about this case. Early in President Trump's term, he was not getting everything he wanted from federal courts, including from some of his appointees. One of the things that Donald Trump said early on when he was frustrated with the courts not giving him everything he wanted was that he had relied on my friend Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society for advice, and Leonard Leo was a bad, terrible man, and the Federalist Society was terrible, and all of Donald Trump's supporters seal clap and said, oh, yeah, the Federalist Society, they're just terrible people. Leonard Leo is awful. All these people who were cheerleading the Federalist Society turned on a dime to vilify the Federalist Society because Donald Trump said so. This was an 8-5 decision of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. All 8 members of the majority are Federalist Society members. The 5 members of the minority, not a single one of them is a Federalist Society member. Does the Federalist Society get any credit for this, or do we just vilify them when, because they apply the Constitution and the law, it doesn't give the president what he wants? Do we vilify or not? What do we do here? Because these are all Federalist Society members. Maybe the Federalist Society stays in its lane, and that's part of the president's complaint against them, is that the Federalist Society did not fund his effort to overturn the 2020 election. And as Leonard Leo and others pointed out, the president used an army of Federalist Society lawyers in that case, and he used the Federalist Society lawyers. There were a number of Federalist Society judges involved, and many of the Federalist Society judges ruled against him. It's a little more complicated than that when it comes to the Federalist Society. They are conservatives who believe in a plain reading of the Constitution that restricts the government. Now, what about this case? Let me read you some of the facts here. Anna Lang, a natal male, that is born male, has been a deputy with the Houston County Sheriff's Office since 2006. In 2017, Lang was diagnosed with gender dysphoria and began to openly identify as a woman. According to one of Lang's expert witnesses, gender dysphoria is a serious medical condition that creates an intense and persistent discomfort with one's biological anatomy. In other words, it's a mental health issue. Most transgender individuals seek some level of medical services in connection with their diagnosis. This service ranges from mental health services to counseling to hormone therapy to sex change surgeries. A sex change surgery is a suite of medical procedures that can vary in purpose, cost, and complexity. It may include chest reconstructive surgery, genital reconstructive surgery, such as a penectomy, removal of the penis, orectomy, removal of the testes, and other things, and other surgeries such as facial feminization surgery, liposuction, lipofilling, voice surgery, thyroid cartilage reduction, gluteal augmentation, and hair reconstruction, among others. As a deputy of the Houston County Sheriff's Office, Lang participates in the county's health insurance plan. The plan excludes coverage for 68 medical categories and 29 pharmaceutical categories. Among the excluded medical categories are dental and vision care, elective abortions, contraceptives, hearing aids, fertility treatment, and oral surgeries. The plan excludes all coverage for services or supplies for male or female sexual problems, drugs to treat sexual or erectile problems, and treatment and drugs for infertility. The plan excludes coverage for cosmetic surgeries, and since at least 1998, the plan has excluded drugs, services, and supplies for a sex change or the reversal of a sex change. Since 1998. So this deputy Lang argued that this was sex discrimination, and argued that if he were a woman, he would be allowed to take estrogen and have insurance pay for it. But since he is a biological male, he's not. And the rules, you have to understand how transgenderism has gamed the logic of the system. Under the rules for sex discrimination, what you essentially do is you work your way changing the facts and say, would this be a case of a woman or not? They're relying on the Bostock case, and that was a Neil Gorsuch authored opinion that said that transgender employees are protected under Title VII for employment discrimination. I mean, you can't fire someone because they're transgender. Under Bostock, we apply a simple test for sex discrimination. Change one thing at a time and see if the outcome changes. If changing the employee's sex would have yielded a different choice by the employer has discriminated based on sex. Lang argues the plan discriminates based on sex because it would have covered the requested surgery if Lang were born female and denied coverage only because Lang was born a male. Except the Supreme Court, with Neil Gorsuch, in United States versus Scrimeti that came out just a few months ago, pointed out that there's no discrimination in denying access to transgender medical care. Because if you're a man who wants to transition to a woman, you're prohibited. And if you're a woman transitioning to a man, you're prohibited. In other words, what the Supreme Court said is that women can be given estrogen to treat female problems. But men do not have those same female problems and therefore can't get the estrogen. And Lang is not being discriminated against like any other man. But if a woman wants testosterone to become a man, they can't get it. If a man wants estrogen to become a woman, they can't get it. They're being treated the same. See, transgenderism is an illogical, emotional argument that is not reasonable and defies basic biology. And the arguments don't really make sense and have never really made sense. And yet they try to claim that it's some sort of normal thing. I want to go back to, and I might as well read all of these things because this is in the court record. I'm going to read this full paragraph. I'm going to read all the words. None of them are profane. It's just awkward. A sex change surgery is a suite of medical procedures that can vary in purpose, cost, and complexity. It may include chest reconstruction surgery, genital reconstruction surgery, such as a penectomy, removal of the penis, orchiectomy, removal of the testes, vaginoplasty, clitoroplasty, vulvoplasty, and other surgeries such as facial feminization surgery, liposuction, lipofilling, voice surgery, thyroid cartilage reduction, gluteal augmentation, and hair reconstruction, among others. Now, what is this? This is to conform you to what you believe your gender is. I'm sorry, but if you got to go through that many different procedures to conform you to the gender, you're not natural. That's not natural, which means it is not something biological. It means it is something mental. It is a mental health issue. And the progressive left has embraced this argument that transgenderism is somehow natural, and it's not. If you got to go through that many surgeries, it's not natural. If you've got to ingest a bunch of chemicals, it's not natural. And yet they've insisted somehow it is and must be normal, and it's not. And the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the 8 members of the Federalist Society on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals have said, no, it's not discrimination to tell you that you can't have your sex change covered by your insurance because, well, it applies both ways. A woman can't transition to be a man under the policy. A man can't transition to be a woman under the policy. That's not discrimination. You're treating the men and women exactly equal. And what the trans argument is that men should be able to take medicines that benefit women, and women should be able to take medicines to benefit men for the purposes of becoming the other, not for the purpose of improving themselves as they are. And the court says, no, the logic doesn't work out on that. And they're right. Lang argues that the policy discriminates on the basis of sex. The Supreme Court rejected that interpretation this year. The plaintiffs argued that a Tennessee law discriminated based on sex when it allowed certain treatments for gender dysphoria in children, denied those treatments in children, but allowed those treatments for other medical conditions. And the court reasoned the law did not classify based on sex because the law doesn't prohibit conduct for one sex that it permits for another. Instead, the court explained that the challenged law divides minors into two groups, those who seek puberty blockers to treat the excluded diagnoses and those who seek puberty blockers to treat other conditions. If a transgender boy seeks testosterone to treat his gender dysphoria, the law prohibits it. If you change his biological sex from female to male, the law would still not permit him the hormones he seeks. If the same hypothetical child sought testosterone for qualifying diagnoses, the child could get the testosterone. It's those Federalist Society members that have done this that have been vilified by people on the right because they weren't transactionally giving them everything they wanted. Here is something you wanted. You got it from Federalist Society members. It is a landmark decision today from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals saying that denying transgendered people insurance benefits to transition is not discriminatory. It's actually a very big decision. It's one we've expected, and now we've gotten it. Can we talk about quality for just a minute? Because I can tell you, as I'm updating some furniture in my house that's lasted a very long time, it pains me to see all the cheapy disposable furniture where you're buying cheap stuff that you replace more often. You're actually losing money. It's like people who go out and they buy very cheap sheets, but at the same time, there are people who think they've got to throw thousands of dollars at bed sheets. I actually know someone who spent $1,500 on sheets. My Bull and Branch sheets, they've lasted longer than that guy's sheets, and they're super soft now. They're not the highest thread count, no, but they're organic cotton, and they're long-lasting, and they get softer over time. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep makes with Bull and Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bullandbranch.com/Eric. That's Bull and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/Eric, ERICK. Save 15%, unlock free shipping, exclusions apply. I got an email during the commercial break from someone very upset with me for bringing Donald Trump into the discussion. And listen, I'm sorry some of you get offended by it, but I think it's worth noting that oftentimes many of you, and I do say many of you, when the president says something because you trust him, you take his word for it. And when he said that the Federalist Society members are bad, well, they're not really bad. You don't always get what you want from judges. You don't always get what you want from people you've given lifetime appointments to. But the Federalist Society has a much better track record of picking judges than anybody else. The Federalist Society has a great track record of picking conservative judges. And so I think we need to step back from vilifying Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. 8 out of 8 of the Federalist Society members of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals just said transgenderism doesn't get protected class status for insurance policies. It's a huge, huge landmark decision today. Now, I got to tell you about Vision Computers. You can call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com and they can build you a new computer and save you money. They can upgrade your existing computer and save you money, and they can give you their world-class tech support and save you money. It's all about getting great technology and saving money. Let's talk about managed IT real quick. You got an office. You don't have an in-house IT guy because you can't afford the 6-figure salary for that one person to manage your computers. So you rely on an outside vendor. It's called managed IT. Your employees, they send email tickets if they got problems, things like that. With Vision, your employees get a phone number. They pick up the phone, they call, and in 15 seconds or less, somebody answers the phone and they talk to an actual human being. They don't have to try to figure out how to explain what's going on in an email. They can talk to a human being, and that human being can remote into their computer and help them and save them money and keep them online and keep them going and improve your uptime and decrease your downtime and save you money. Call them at 404-COMPUTE. You have nothing to lose. Any business nationwide can take advantage of this. And if you're in the gig economy, they'll help you too. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Stay online with Vision Computers. In business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you can only pick two. What if you could have all three at the same time? That's exactly what Cohere, Thomson Reuters, and Specialized Bikes have since they've upgraded to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI is the blazing fast platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload in a high availability, consistently high performance environment and spend less than you would with other clouds. How's it faster? OCI's block storage gives you more operations per second. Cheaper? OCI costs up to 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Better? In test after test, OCI customers report lower latency and higher bandwidth versus other clouds. This is the cloud built for AI and for all your biggest workloads. Right now, with zero commitment, try OCI for free. Head to oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 is the phone number should you wish to be on the program. Delighted to have you with me today. Don't forget to text Eric, ERICK, to 33777. You can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and a whole lot more. I'm continuing to just dwell on, and there's another point to be had here on this murder in Charlotte, North Carolina's Democrats don't know how to respond. You got Van Jones, who I do like, on CNN saying the guy was hurting. You know who's not hurting? The dead girl. She's not hurting now. She was hurting more than him there for a little while. The sick compassion on the left. I want to play you this clip. This is from, and you know I don't like it, and I really don't like to play clips from the show because I don't like to put a spotlight on it. So Abby Phillips on CNN has the show, it's Struggle Session with Abby Phillips. I think it's, I don't even know what time it's on, but it's essentially, it's the Maoist struggle session that Abby Phillips leads against conservatives every night on CNN. And I want to play for you just one little bit of this clip here.
Absolutely.
One of the discussions that we've had earlier this week is that one of the failures that we have is that we have not figured out how to actually provide that kind of care. Mm-hmm. That, if someone is actually seriously mentally ill, maybe on the verge of violence, where do they go?
We're unwilling
Except
to
on the
put
street.
in
Or
the
North Carolina, not on the verge of violence, actually demonstrated violence in the past, and nobody flagged it. Actually, the police, to your point, said, we're going to refer you to more resources, and that went nowhere. So there were multiple...
Nobody flagged it. He served time for his violent offenses.
Not for his schizophrenia.
That's not a crime.
That's not a crime.
No, I know, but I'm saying that was compounding this entire issue.
Yeah,
the fact that he lashed out violently on that.
I know. I'm just saying he did actually serve time for the violent offenses that he committed.
But he was a career criminal, a repeat offender who was let back onto our streets despite a really bad criminal record that suggests he should have been locked away for life because he was threatening the public. He was a menace to society.
He should have been locked away for life for what now?
He should have schizophrenia.
You want him to...
You actually said that. I can't believe you actually said that. Somebody should be locked away in jail forever for schizophrenia. Did you really say that?
Isolated.
Did you really say that?
In an institution.
Is this actually...
You see this? She's right. And she should have said up front, an institution. We have these state-run mental institutions around the country. There's one about 45 minutes away from me here in Milledgeville, Georgia. I grew up across the street from one in Louisiana. Yeah, the jokes write themselves. I get it. I am from a small town in Louisiana, Jackson, Louisiana, in East Feliciana Parish. And 2 blocks from my house was the outer gate to the East State Hospital. It's the mental institution where they would put the people, and further down the road from me was a prison for the criminally insane. That's the area I grew up in. I grew up in basically the entire parish that I lived in. Louisiana's parishes, not counties. The entire parish was essentially welfare for the state. You had the state prisons, state mental institutions, state prison for the criminally insane, state retirement home for war veterans. But you had a mental institution that was state-run. And in the 1970s, the Democrats got the bright idea that we should allow the crazy out of the institutions and mainstream them, mainline them into society where we would treat them in halfway houses. There's very near me a very well-to-do upper middle-class neighborhood. and the state bought a house at the edge of that neighborhood and turned it into a halfway house where people who were being let out of the mental institutions could stay and get treatment. And you will not be surprised to learn that crime went up in the neighborhood. For some reason, the left got twisted on who we're supposed to help in society. I am an evangelical Christian, as all of you know. We are to love God above all else and love our neighbor. And loving our neighbor includes loving the schizophrenic, homeless, bad guy. But it also includes loving the young lady from Ukraine, the refugee from a war who came to this country. And for some reason on the left, they've decided we have to love them both the same way, where in so doing, it means we must both let them roam society. Except one of them is a threat to the other. And the left no longer can make the logical argument that some people are a threat to society and should be put somewhere for themselves. And I want you to think about this. I really just follow the logic with me on this. Follow the logic here. We were supposed to let the murderer roam free. We were supposed to let the guy, DeCarlos Brown, roam society. He's been convicted 12 times of crimes, arrested 14 times, been in and out of prison, has schizophrenia, and we're supposed to let him roam free because the left says that's loving your neighbor. Van Jones says he was hurting. You know what? If my neighbor is hurting, I want him not to hurt. And sometimes what you have to do is force that person into treatment because that's loving your neighbor. But what the left says is, no, we have to allow him to roam the streets, possibly cause him. You know what's going to happen to you people on the left? Abby Phillips, do I have your attention here? Maybe because you're in this camp with your struggle session. You loved DeCarlos Brown so much, he murdered someone, and now he's probably going to go to prison for the rest of his life, if not get the death penalty. You loved him straight to the electric chair. That's what you people on the left did. And there's an innocent young woman from Ukraine, Irina Zarutska, who's now dead because of it. That's the perversion of love from the left. That is the twisted logic of evil, frankly. A godless, secular love that treats deviancy as normal and treats normal as deviant. The idea of compassion from the left in this society is that we should treat everybody equally, the good person and the bad person. It's one of my problems with public schools these days, where you have the good kid who is academically gifted, and God forbid that kid show up at school with Advil and hasn't told the principal about it, they're going to get suspended because we've taken discretion away to say, you know what, this is actually a good kid. They just brought Advil and didn't tell the office. They didn't give it to the nurse, as opposed to the drug dealer kid who we know has drugs all the time. No, we're going to treat him exactly equal. No, you know what? In society, there are good people and there are bad people. And on the left, they've decided the bad people, they've just got to be loved a little bit more. And who are we to distinguish? If anything, on the left, they treat the good people bad. My daughter is in a great books class, and they're studying Amos. At least that they were. They blew through Amos. Amos is my favorite book of the Old Testament. Really is probably my favorite book of the Bible. Amos goes to Israel. Amos is the very first of the written prophets in the Bible. And he's from Judah, and God sends him. And Amos is a well-off guy. He's not just a poor person from the class of prophets. You know, there was a school of prophets. Isaiah was from the school of prophets. Amos was a farmer, a plantation owner, and he's sent north. And he goes to Israel and he says to Israel, you got this all wrong. You are super wealthy. We down in Judah are poor. You people in Israel, y'all are very, very well off. And you look at it and say, we must be pleasing God because we're well off. And you don't get it. This is a mercy because this is the best you're ever going to have it. He's about to wipe you out. He made you wealthy, hoping you would turn back to him, and you didn't. So then he made you poor, hoping you'd turn back to him, and you didn't. So now he's just letting you have the best time possible because this is the best you're going to get. You're about to be wiped out. Northern Israel, Samaria, that they misinterpreted their wealth as a blessing when really it was a curse. They thought they were living right. What were they doing? They were treating the poor terribly. And here comes Amos and says, you will be judged by God on how you treated the widows, the orphans, the poor, and the refugees. You progressives, you got a refugee murdered. You lecture me repeatedly on illegal immigrants and Jesus being a refugee. Your policies just caused a refugee from war-torn Ukraine to be murdered in Charlotte, North Carolina on light rail, and you want me to feel sorry for the murderer because he was hurting? The murderer should have been locked up for his own good and safety. And because he wasn't, because in your perverse name of compassion, you thought he should be out on the streets harming other people, and now that he's harmed them, he's probably going to be executed, if not incarcerated, for the rest of his life as a murderer. How did that love the man? Please tell me, how did it love the insane man? You lecture me on God says you got to love your neighbors. You call yourself a Christian. Yeah, I do. I call myself a Christian. I believe in loving my neighbors. Here I've got two neighbors, a Ukrainian refugee and an insane man with schizophrenia who's been out of prison constantly in and out, in and out, in and out. So it seems to me loving him is to force him to get the help he needs, to force him to get the mental care he needs, to put him in an institution run by the state where he is not a threat to others nor to himself. And instead, your definition of loving your neighbor is letting the refugee get murdered by the insane man you refuse to force to get help. The left, the progressive left, has screwed up society. And then they say you're just expected to deal with the homeless people. You're expected to deal with the insane people. You're expected to get on the train and be harassed. No, that's a failure of society. You have failed society by establishing that as a policy, and you think you're actually doing good for society. I want to read you this tweet. It's in the show notes. If you text Eric to 33777, ERICK to 33777. You can see this. A point to ponder from Samantha Steele Ponder. I take the subway multiple times a day, every day with my 3 kids. Every single day we encounter several clearly unwell and violent men. I've taught my kids not to make eye contact, to switch train cars even when it's not our stop, and to never get on a nearly empty train. All split-second discussions as we try to gauge whether an obviously sick person is going to hurt someone or just continue screaming, knocking things over, etc. The horrific video of Irina's murder has confirmed my belief that we have to get these men off the streets. Our DAs and judges have failed us. They show the illusion of empathy for the mentally ill, but it is neither loving nor safe to continue to let career criminals roam the streets. It never was. The left deluded itself into thinking it was loving their neighbor. No, they actually hate their neighbor. They hated their neighbor by doing this sort of stuff. They hated their neighbor. They loved evil. They loved the madman. They put their empathy for the depraved ahead of their empathy for the next door neighbor. Philip, you can cut this short little clip and you can put it online because this was very blunt. You and I on the right, because of our support for President Trump deporting immigrants, get lectured nonstop by the left on the Bible saying love your neighbor and care for the refugees. And you smug people on the left look at us all the time at Christmas and tell us how Jesus was a refugee. And you know what your public policies have done? Gotten a refugee from war-torn Ukraine murdered on a light rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina, because in the name of loving your neighbor, you left a madman out on the streets who murdered this refugee, and now he will be punished for the rest of your life. You loved him so much, he'll be punished for the rest of his life, and you loved the refugee so much, your policies got her murdered. How the hell is that actually loving your neighbor? The answer is it's not, unless you're a demented progressive who forgot that one of the core components of a just and fair society is actually treating the good people well and taking care of the bad people so they're neither harm to themselves nor to anyone else. You lost the plot point on how to deal with society, which is why the nation keeps rejecting you. Hello there, it is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. I'm doing some bleeding edge on the fly stuff here no other radio show host in America could do himself. I just literally pulled a clip from The View that just hit the airwaves. I have no idea, but based on how it was described on Twitter, I'm going to play this clip from Whoopi Goldberg, although, well, Kobe, you better be on the delay button. But this was on broadcast TV, so it should be fine. This is Whoopi Goldberg. Just happened.
Look, a young woman is dead. Let's take that into consideration. And yes, a man who should have been behind bars was loose and out.
Well, he should have been.
Well, listen. Yeah. He was a schizophrenic man. His mother begged them to take him and put him away. So stop politicizing this. This is not political. Yeah. This has to do with how we take care of our sick Americans when they are in need.
Wow, exactly. Whoopi Goldberg and I agree. His own mother wanted him institutionalized. His own mother wanted the state to help. And the state decided the most compassionate thing they could do would be to let him roam the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina. I just can't explain to you how aggravating it is to me to every year get lectured by the left that Jesus was a refugee and we got to love our refugees. And we love this refugee enough to allow her into this country to escape the war. And the left loved DeCarlos Brown so much they let him murder her. And now he'll be punished for the rest of his life when he could have been helped. He could have been helped, but they decided that the way to help him was to allow him to roam free despite his mother telling them he was a threat to himself and others. The progressive left decided they knew best, and best was to allow him to roam free. And Whoopi Goldberg's right. This isn't political. This is not political. This is the logical outcome of these policies. Now he'll be punished the rest of his life. He could have been helped. He could have been helped. He could have been institutionalized. He could have been medicated. He could have been helped. And the left decided not to do any of that and decided that was more compassionate. And now he'll be punished the rest of his life. And a refugee is dead. Pitiful. Look, I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank before I get out of here. They are my bank. They actually are. I've got a checking account and a savings account with them. No interest checking, no interest savings. They're one of the fastest growing banks in the country, if not the fastest growing bank. They're good people. They're headquartered out of Oklahoma. In fact, I see those of you on Freedom 96.9 on Oklahoma City. They're advertiser on your website. They're headquartered in Oklahoma City. They're by conservatives for conservatives. They came up because of all the debanking trends that were happening out there. And they're very competitive rates, got great interest rates. You can do mortgages, car loans, CDs, you name it. If you're a business, they got great business accounts. oldglorybank.com/Eric is where you go. oldglorybank.com/ERICK. You can get an account with Old Glory Bank. They are a freedom-loving bank, and they'd love to do business with you. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. When we come back, we got to talk about basic economics. So some interesting, surprising data about the PPI data out there, but also in New York, a crazy story about apartment building. It's the basics, people, the basics.